wish I were better at it. But you'll see, I'm calling today Solar Sunday, because I want to talk about stuff that this church has done already, namely our wonderful solar project, and what that is and means for our community. Because St. Philip's has a strong connection to environmental care. We call that creation care inside the church. We care about the woodlot that we own behind the altar. We care about feeding our neighbors with the Good News Garden. We don't use over much pesticides for our garden out in front of the church. It has some weeds in it right now because of things like that. But we also, about 2 years ago, just before I was brought on as your rector, decided we were going to do something else. And that became the solar project. How many of you know that this all happened very quickly about 2 years ago? A couple of hands. Okay. So what is the solar project? It was originally conceived in that interim period between when your previous rectors left and when I arrived. And it was a part of this parish saying, we want to do more to care for creation. We're not a giant church. It's a big deal that a small church like this said, we want to do more to care for the environment, for our community, for God's creation. And it was a really big part of who you are that you said you wanted to do that. And I had no part in it. I led no conversations, no focus groups. None of that was on me because it was happening when I was not yet even considered to become your priest. The construction happened the summer I arrived. I showed up, and I think it was the next week or two that CBS Solar showed up, cleared the land, and was starting to pour the pylons for our tracker heads. So it was a very quick thing that I showed up and suddenly there was this big construction project on the property that I had no idea about before I came. And almost immediately, the solar project was a success. Our summer electric bills are something like 90 to 95% less than they were before the solar project. There are some fees we always have to pay to be connected to the grid, and so it's not 100% less, but it's close. It also means that St. Philip's is the only church that I know of in all of Benzie County that has solar panels. And it's really recognizable. Right now, because of all the green foliage, we can't see them from the road. But 9 months out of the year, those 5 solar tracking heads are very distinctive as you're driving up the hill. People now recognize St. Philip's as the church with the baby pantry and the one with the solar panels. That's a huge difference from not really being able to be seen. We're kind of a brown building amongst trees between the road and the golf course. And it's actually really strange because some people, when they're driving past and I'm standing outside, will point at me as if they didn't know there was a church here. So having the solar panels made us instantly more recognizable. And we can sell unused power back to the power grid. That's how our power bills get lowered so far, because we use some power to keep refrigeration running and do all that sort of thing at night. Here at the church, we keep our parking lot lights on, things like that. So we're spending money on power at night when it's cheapest, but also we sell some power back to the grid. But during the day, when we're not using all the power we produce, we're actually losing money. Because what we sell back to the grid is at a rate the grid sets. It's not at market rate. So we're not actually getting as much selling our power to the grid as they are selling it for to the people who eventually use it. So when we use it in-house, when we're here in the building with the air conditioning and the fans and all those sorts of things on, we're getting more benefit from having the solar panels than if we're just selling that power back to the grid. And this was one of those things I think was very subtle about having our solar project. As soon as we accomplished having the solar panels, we were a regional leader for creation care. And I don't mean like regional as in the diocese, I mean as in all of Providence 5. There are corporate-sized parishes that have 300 people coming to their church every single Sunday and have 1,000 for Christmas that haven't done a project like we did. It is a huge deal that we have that. And the fact that it's just lovingly nestled in the other thing that we're a regional leader in with the baby pantry, that means that the impact that St. Philip's is having because of our beliefs is immense. And you should be very proud of that. We did have one interruption to power production in September of 2024. There is a central component to that system that converts the DC that comes off of the panels to AC that the grid wants to transmit. And that inverter sometimes will not have settled in its chemistry appropriately, and it will die within the first 6 to 9 months. They have a 2.5-year warranty on them, a 3-year warranty. So it was replaced for free because our inverter died in September. But we are now still under the warranty for this inverter because inverters can die within the first several years. But it's now lasted longer than the other one. And if they last beyond the initial break-in period, they tend to last for their entire stated lifetimes. This was the graphic that I pulled from our monitoring website on Monday. The amount of electricity our solar panels have produced total have offset something like 54,000 tons of carbon. Pounds of carbon, excuse me. But it says we planted an equivalent of 409 trees. That is 409 full growth, mature trees that act as carbon and CO2 sinks. We've planted 3 more trees since then. It's been very sunny this last couple of days. And if we had spent all of that power that we generated charging one electric car over the last, essentially, 2 years, it could have driven 61,000 miles. That's twice what an average car would have driven in that time, which is about 15,000 miles a year, so 30,000 miles. So we were producing more than you could drive in a typical year by twice on our solar panels. This is the actual production numbers by year. The light green is from 2024, the dark purple is from 2025, and 2026 is the teal. You can see in 2024, our system was installed in June. So we only have a partial month's worth of production for the month of June in 2024. Now we are almost far enough along that we have comparable data. This month, July, and this is from the beginning of this week, we had more cloudy days, more rain, and smoke smog for almost a week. So we're having much less production. That is not necessarily that our panels are getting less efficient or that there's been problems with them. It is that we are dependent on the weather. But this means that during our summer months, from around May till August, 4 months of the year, we produce over 2 megawatts of power, which is a huge amount for this little solar installation. And it's also a huge benefit to this community. It provides resilience. One of the things that's causing so much volatility in people's utility bills in other parts of the country is that backup power generation tends to come from fossil fuels. Coal, natural gas, clean natural gas. They don't use the coal backups much anymore because it takes them a week and a half to 2 weeks to get up to temperature. They have to burn 2 weeks worth of coal before they can produce any electricity. You didn't know that. The natural gas, it only takes 2 days. But they need 2 days warning. The warm start ones, it only takes about a day. But most of the resiliency or backup or emergency power the United States has available to it is in capacity that's unused from waiting and still paid for fossil fuels. Because we are now a part of the greater grid in this area, providing resilient power, the amount of those sorts of stations that have to be kept alive by being maintained and then used when it's necessary also goes down. So the amount of effect to the positive at the reduction of the use of carbon producing and O2 producing power generation is not actually shown by how much we've saved by supplanting it. We're also enabling those producers to decommission more of those dirty fuel-powered production facilities. So this is an important thing. We're actually being a part of people saying to each other and themselves in boardrooms, oh, we actually don't need to kill the environment anymore just to keep things running. Because that's been part of the narrative for the last 20 years. The solar project stands right now as a $40,000 debt for the church. When we did the project, we thought there was going to be a time that we would have a fundraising campaign to pay for it, and we would use some tax credits that might be coming from the federal government. Some of those disappeared. Some of them might still be coming, but not until the end of this year. We anticipate maybe getting a $17,000 tax credit from the federal government for installing this project, which would be applied to that total right there. But until we have it in our hands, we still have on our books a serious amount of debt for this project. I want to point out again, all of this project was conceived before you had pastoral leadership, and in a time when who you were as a community was very important. You were trying to establish who you were as you sought a priest, as you figured out who you were without the former priests that you had left, and still probably reeling, in part, from the problems of COVID. When I got here, we still locked the church building. That was the first time you guys ever did that, was COVID. You locked the church building, and no one had ever stopped. So last year sometime, I just decided to leave the church open. I told the vestry a month and a half later, hey guys, you guys know the church has been open? You haven't needed your key to get in for the last month and a half? The idea of who we are, the identity of who St. Philip's is we are the big church that's small. We do big things. And this is one of those big things that we did. But we didn't spend the time to pay for it because we were relying on gifts coming that never did. But also, there was an idea amongst many people in the church that we had the money to spend. St. Philip's is blessed with an endowment that helps pay for our operating funds. It's not designed to absorb a debt this big for a project that we do together. It can help, and it is helping. And that may actually be one of the ways we have to pay this back. But if we want to be stewards of our community as it is today, we'll have to make different choices about how we spend money. if we're going to spend part of our yearly budget to pay down what we owe ourselves. The challenge of repaying this project to ourselves is also going to be our first test, because there are other things that the church needs to start considering about itself in terms of maintenance and upkeep that we haven't looked at in almost 5 years. Now, the Buildings and Grounds Committee is aware of most of them and wants to work on them. We have begun to reclad the outside of this wall of the building because it's been so sun-scorched and hurt by weather that we're starting to have peeling paint and rotting boards and that sort of thing. But there's also the drainage stones around the outside of the church that have, the pipes in them have risen, which happens every 10, 15 years. You have to take out all the stones, put the sand back down, put new drainage pipes in, and put the river rock back on top. That's a long and a very expensive process if we're going to ask somebody else to do it. In the next 2 or 3 years, we'll probably have to get a quote to replace the roof or do some major renovation on it, as you have to do once every 20 years or so. The next 3 to 5 years, we'll have to probably resurface the parking lot. Not just seal it again, but resurface it. These things are becoming more aware in the minds of the leadership of the parish. But we can't think or talk about any of those things until we know we have the strength inside of our community to deal with the things we've already done, including the solar project. So, I am actually asking, can you help us? Some of you will say no. That is good. Some of you will say, I'm not sure I want to. That's also good. I'm not asking anyone who can't help to step forward and feel burdened. What I'm asking right now is, if you had the chance to plan, could you help the parish live into who we are, that theology that you claimed in that interim period before you hired me, that said, we want to be leaders in the things that we do here. Build this solar project and become not just recognizable, but more who we say we want to be. We want to be the people who care for our community, who care for our environment. So we build this project. And now I'm hoping that you'll be able to say, yes, I want to be a part of that, and here's how much I can help. Any amount put towards the solar project will be a benefit to us becoming who we said we were when we built that project.